Lilei. My name is Lilei Chen. I'm the VP Sales and Operations for LuxCreo here in Europe. It's a great pleasure. We have a large number of registered participants from all over the world. I was quite impressed. You have country codes and that I didn't even know. So it's really great to have such a strong showing for this very interesting topic we have. I will start with introducing myself. So I have the pleasure to be with LuxCreo, which is a company that I've been observing for a while, and I was attracted into the technology and the impact this can bring to your clinics and to your patients. You will be able to access the Q&A area. You can type in questions anytime. It won't be disruptive to the presentation, and we'll go moderate these questions as we go. So without further waiting, I will move on. So I want to first thank all of you for joining today, and I want to particularly thank Dr. Alex Lin, who's our guest speaker. And Dr. Lin has obtained his MSc in orthodontics from the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. He also did his orthodontic residency at UPenn and had gotten his doctorate degree in dental surgery from National Taiwan University. So it's a great pleasure to have Dr. Lin with us today. Prior to starting, I wanted to kind of explain a bit of the background of why we've organized this webinar. The science behind the smarter tooth movement really comes from scientific development. We are very proud of the efforts of our R&D and engineering team that have put together both a material science development as well as a technology system that works effectively and efficiently. You can see on the left side that comes with the opportunity for you to print in office the aligners straight and directly from the printer. No more production of models and thermoforming. The full system that's perfectly optimized for the best performance of our material. And then, of course, we are enabling all of our doctors also to combine that production to maybe print for the next day while ordering the rest of their aligners or completely designing the treatment plan, etc., from a 4D aligner service that we can provide and ship directly to your clinic. The science that we have has been recognized by the regulatory authorities in a multiple number of countries. The FDA Class 2 clearance has been obtained already more than a couple of years ago. We obtained at the end of last year, the end of 2024, the CE marking according to MDR, which is the extremely strict requirement on the biocompatibility. And we have also obtained Health Canada, NMPA in China, PMDA in Japan, Taiwan FDA for Class 2 clearance as well. So again, behind this science is our ActiveMemory polymer, which is really, in fact, the topic of today's talk applied to the clinical cases. So the agenda today is going to be this quick introduction. From my end, I will now leave the ground to Dr. Alex Lin, and we will conclude with a Q&A session. So I do encourage you to go in the control bar of the Zoom application or web interface, click on Q&A, and then you can type in your questions as you want. Thank you very much. So before we go to Alex, I would just stop sharing my screen and invite Dr. Lin to join the stage. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. And well, hi everyone. As they just said, I mean, we have an audience from all around the world. So it's good evening to you if you're in Asia, like me. I'm currently in Taiwan. And I know we have a lot of audience from Europe, so in the afternoon and then early morning for those in North America. So I'm Dr. Alex Lin, and today I'm going to talk about the science behind this active memory polymer, or shape memory polymer, if that's the other name that you've heard of. So a little bit about myself. As I was just kindly introduced by the host, I did my ortho residency at U pen.
And Dr. Lin, maybe just to interrupt you a minute, if you move to presentation mode on the screen you're sharing, that I think will allow us to benefit from the nice slides you've created. We're still on your presentation.
Oh, okay. Let me just check again. Sorry. Are you seeing the screen
Yes,
now?
perfect. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so so a little bit about me. I did my ortho residency at UPenn and graduated into 2023. So after graduating, I moved back to my hometown, Taiwan, and am now practicing at a private practice as an orthodontist. And today I'm going to talk about direct print versus thermoform. So I think this is the hottest topic that everyone has been talking about in the orthodontic world. So what are the benefits or disadvantages of thermoformed or direct print aligners? Why are we shifting to direct print aligners? So think from the geometry aspect, there are certain disadvantages that thermoformed aligners have. And first, I think let's look at the variation in aligner thickness. So if you've ever done a thermoform liner on your own, I guess every orthodontist who's been to residency have had this kind of experience before. So we use a vacuum formed machine, right? And we use this, say, Essex or a plastic sheet, and we heat it up and press it down on a model. But when you press it down on the model, there's got to be certain gaps between the model and the aligner. And also the aligner touches the cusp of the tooth first before it touches the, say, buccal surface or the lingual surface of the tooth. So this will result in the plastic getting stretched at the cusp tip and in the end resulting in a ununiform thickness of the aligner. So if we look at the heat map over here, yellow means thin, right? And green means where you get the thicker part of the aligner. So you can see that at the occlusal surface, the aligner is actually thinner, while at the buccal or lingual surfaces, the aligner is thicker. And if you think of your say like CleanCheck or other software that you use for treatment planning, you always think that the aligner thickness should be uniform because this is how you move your teeth. Like you imagine that the force around the tooth is in the same magnitude. But actually, in reality, if the aligner thickness itself is not uniform, the force itself cannot be uniform, and it's actually going to be a different net force than what you think. The second disadvantage of a thermoformed aligner, as I just mentioned, is that the gap between the aligner and the tooth, you just can't control. So at the cusp tip, the gap is smaller, while at the margin of the tooth, the gap is loose. And with that, this unity in the aligner tooth gap, what you get from a net force is actually a net intrusion force because the force from the occlusal surface is still large because the gap is small, but while the force at the margin or at the buccal or lingual surfaces are actually smaller than you think because the gap is bigger and the aligner itself is not actually touching or wrapping around the tooth as tightly as you think. And this will result in a net intrusion force. And I think everyone who has an experience in aligner treatment will know that intrusion is actually almost always one of the first signs that we see when the teeth go off track. So these disadvantages on the other side of that is actually the advantage that a direct print aligner offers. So in thickness, by direct printing your aligners, you can get a uniform thickness. In other cases where you want to have a better control of the torque, you can actually use multi-thickness where in certain points on the tooth surface where you want to exert a much larger force, or you want to like pinpoint your force, you can ensure that the force is bigger by increasing the thickness of the aligner at that spot. Another advantage that direct print aligners offer is a control in aligner tooth gap. So as we previously mentioned, for a thermoformed aligner, you cannot control the gap. But for a direct print aligner, you can control the gap. And for cases where you want to extrude a tooth, so if we look at the picture below that I'm showing here, if we say want to extrude that tooth, we can actually, through design, we can create a gap at the incisal direction of that tooth, where at the direction where we want to extrude that tooth, and also make the margin, make the aligner tighter at the margin. So let's look at the case. So this is actually one of my first case using LuxCreo. So this is my high school buddy. So he's actually my guinea pig when using. I mean, this is my first ever case using LuxCreo. So if we look at his lateral incisors, you can notice that he has a little bit crossbite, anterior cross, very, very, very minor anterior crossbite. And also the lateral incisors are a little bit infraoccluded. So if we look at the occlusal, and you can notice that he has a little bit of crowding also at the lower right, where the canine and the lateral incisors touch each other. So I designed this aligner tooth gap at the lateral incisors. You can notice that the gap is significantly bigger at the lateral incisor compared to the center incisor. And this is how I want to extrude the tooth, because by creating this gap, we are creating a space and making it easier for that lateral tooth to come down. And you can see that after 6 months, I'm sorry, the slides are, let me just move back. So after 6 months of treatment, the teeth are much better aligned and the lateral tooth have come down, and also we've corrected the crossbite. So another design, I think, for what you can achieve with direct printing is you can, as I just said, you can control the thickness of the aligner. So for aligner treatment, what we do a lot is distalization. But if you use a thermoformed aligner, just imagine how the aligner was manufactured. It was manufactured through vacuum forming on 3D printed models of the tooth. So you have models where you distalize the teeth. But at the contact, say, if we look at the picture here, if we want to distalize the upper second molars, there's got to be a gap between the first molars and the second molars, right? But if you use a thermoformed aligner, just think about how that aligner was manufactured. The aligner is actually gonna go down into that gap because of vacuum forming, right? So at the gap between the first and second molar, the aligner is actually becoming thinner. But this is actually the space or the place that where you want to have the biggest amount of force, because when you're actively distalizing the second molars, the force should come from the mesial side of the second molars. And if the aligner material is not thick enough, or even worse, it's thinner at the mesial side of the second molars, you're not guaranteed to have a strong enough force. But with direct print aligners, because you can control the thickness of that aligner material, you can actually ensure that at the gap, or at the gap between the first and second molars, the aligner material is thick, and you can actually make it thicker thereby creating a much bigger force and making sure that the distalization of the second molars receives enough force. The same strategy applies, I think, to a lingual fixed retainer. So, lingual fixed retainers, we all know that patients get a lot of calculus from lingual fixed retainers, and not every orthodontist loves lingual fixed retainer. I don't think most patients like lingual fixed retainer either. So this is a design that I made on a clear retainer using LuxCreo's software and also material. So for clear retainers, I made a thickening on the lingual side of the lower anteriors to sort of mimic a lingual fixed retainer on a lingual clear retainer. Because with this thickening at the lingual side of the lower anterior teeth, I think we're going to get a much stronger force at the lingual aspect, and thereby reducing the chance of the lower anteriors going into relapse. So I think this is one of the creative design that you can only achieve if you do direct printing. You could never get a result like this with a thermoformed aligner or a thermoformed retainer. Now, another design that I want to show, so this is the second case that I'm showing, so my guinea pig 2. So this is a posterior biturbo. So this guy is actually my assistant's boyfriend. So if we take a look at his second molars, you can notice that he has a crossbite and actually a scissor bite. So a posterior crossbite at the second molars. Now, for fixed appliances, for braces, you probably have to add a bite turbo, right, at the first molars, and then you run cross elastics at the second molars to correct this kind of crossbite. For aligners, for thermoformed aligners, you would probably have to ask your technician or through your software, place some attachments on the occlusal surfaces of the first molars, for example, as a bite ramp as well. But these bite ramps, if they're made with a thermoformed aligners, they're hollowed. So the patients crush the attachments or the bite ramps easily. Now, with LuxCreo's creative design, so I made this posterior biturbo, but it's a solid biturbo, so which makes it very, very, very difficult to crush. The patient was able to bite on that biturbo, and then with some cross elastics, we were able to correct that scissor bite within 5 months. So I think this is a very nice design that direct print aligners offer. So you can see that the 7s are nicely placed and the crossbite was resolved. And if we look at the from the occlusal view, you can see that the upper 7s, they were initially buccally displaced, but now they've come into alignment. And also the lower molars, if we look at the initial pictures, the lower molars were, especially the 7s, were very, very lingually tipped, and now they were much more buccally uprighted. So this is a superimposition of the initial and after. And we can see that the blue image was before treatment, yellow was after. So you can see that post-treatment, the second molars have indeed been tipped towards the palatal or lingual direction. I'm going to show a third case here. So this patient has anterior crowding at his lower arch. And now this is initial, and you can see that the lower anteriors were very crowded. If we look from the frontal view, the lower left one was actually partially hidden by the lower right one. Now, this is 2 months into treatment. I haven't completed this treatment yet, so this is the latest pictures that I have, but after 2 months of wearing LuxCreo's aligners, we were able to relieved to a certain degree his lower anterior crowding. And if we look from the frontal view, notice how the lower canines have uprighted. So if we look at the initial, you can see the lower canines were the axis of the lower canines were tipped towards lingual. But how the canines were able to be uprighted pretty nicely. And the lower left one, we could see that it has almost come forward. And I think with a few more months of wearing, we should be able to get a pretty nice result. So all of these treatments, they require successful printing. So for those of you who had previous experience of doing in-house aligners, you probably know a little bit about 3D printing. For those of you who have not, let's look together at some of the key elements that I think are especially important to if you want to start using LuxCreo system successfully. So first of all is a supporting structure. So the picture on the left is an aligner printed from a LuxCreo's printer. And you can see how the supporting structures were able to host the aligner in shape as the aligner was printed and gradually pulled out from the tank. The next step is to remove uncured monomers. So we all know that 3D printing, this is a process of polymerization. So the resin itself, the liquid resin that you begin with, it's full of uncured monomer. The printer is gonna cure these monomers into polymers. But then there's only a certain degree to how much you can polymerize an aligner from a printer. So in the end, you always have some uncured monomers. And these monomers are how some patients get allergies, because monomers are actually poisonous, right? So a key step is to remove these uncured monomers if you want to avoid patients having allergy. I think right now we are about 2 to 3 years into direct printing, and we've been starting to hear some cases from doctors using other brands of direct printing aligners having some allergy of complaints from their patients. And I think one of the key reasons is that the monomers were not cleanly or like completely removed. And with LuxCreo's system, I'm going to show you a video later. I think LuxCreo has done a very good job in removing these uncured monomers and dramatically decrease the chance that you're going to get an allergy, which is something that nobody wants. Another key factor in successfully printing is layering. So you want to make sure that the printing resolution is good. If you have a printing resolution that is not good enough, you will get a printer that has several has a very rough layer, and it's going to be less transparent, and patients you're also going to get more staining, and patients are not going to be happy with the result. So printing resolution or layering is very essential if you want to get a clear aligner, especially in direct printing. The last, which I think actually is the most important aspect of successful printing, is to get the parameters right. So parameters are the things that you can set in a printer, right? You can set the wavelength, you can set the intensity of the light from a printer. But what I think LuxCreo has done a very great job is that LuxCreo is a closed system, so it's not an open system. A closed system means that it is best for you to print or use LuxCreo's resin using LuxCreo's printer, using LuxCreo's curing machine, using LuxCreo's washing machine. Now, if you have done in-house aligner, you will know that this whole process, there's like so many steps where you can get wrong. And if you get one step wrong, it's gonna result in very, very bad results. You either get unsuccessful printing, you either get printer aligners that are not shaped in the way that you want them to be. You will probably get allergies from patients because you weren't able to clean the monomers completely. But with LuxCreo, because it's a closed system, so everything is set to where they exactly should be. So I think it's like using iPhone versus Android. So if you use Android, you can use different kinds of mobile phones brands using the Android system, but they may not be like well adapted to the system. But LuxCreo is like iPhone. When you use iPhone, all the apps, the iOS, they're all specifically designed for that phone. And LuxCreo is just like that. The printers, the whole system is incorporated together to make it easier for you to operate and also less prone to having errors. So let's look at this video. So we have a printer from LuxCreo, and then these are the resins that they have. You design your tooth using an external software, but then you import the STL file into their software where you get supporting structures, and then you print them out. And then the key feature that I was just saying, the thing that is very important is to remove these uncured monomers. So the good thing is that with LuxCreo's aligners, you can wash them in alcohol or IPA. So this is, I think, very, very important because the one of the other brands that you may know is that their aligners they're recommending to wash it using centrifuge, but IPA or using alcohol wash is the best way to remove excessive monomer, and LuxCreo's material can sustain IPA wash, and which is I think is one of the key reasons why we're seeing less allergies with LuxCreo's aligner. So I think this is a very, very important thing that everyone should know. And then after washing, you also need to do post-curing because it's going to increase further polymerization, making the aligner more rigid, making the mechanical properties better, and also making sure that, again, you have less allergy. Okay, so now we're done with the process of manufacturing aligners. So the next step is to put into patient's mouth. And with orthodontic movement, we all know that power chains, for example, experience stress relaxation. Aligners, of course, also experience stress relaxation. And but an orthodontic movement requires light continuous force. So how are you going to ensure that when the force drops after you place the aligner inside the patient's mouth, you still have enough force to move the teeth? So this is where shape memory or active memory polymer comes in. So this graph is where you place a LuxCreo's aligner into a patient's mouth, you experience an initial force drop, which you see for all kinds of aligners. But because of the shape memory effect or the active memory polymer that LuxCreo's aligner have, if you put it into hot water or the thermal excitations that we see over here, the force goes back to its initial level. And then a patient wears it, experiences another drop. But if you put it into hot water again, the aligner goes back to its original shape and also retains its original force. And again through the cycle, you could always ensure that the patient is wearing an aligner with adequate strength. So this is very important because only with this, you can ensure that the patient's teeth are experiencing a sustained continuous force. And this is how you can move your teeth more efficiently. So I'm going to explain a little bit about how this shape memory thing works. So let's look at this video first. So this little boy over here, so we can see that there's a plastic string attached from this truck to this pole over here. And then the boy turns on the heater. And with the heat, this plastic string shrinks. And all we can, again, this shows that the string shrinks or the shape changes when the temperature rises. Same over here. So this string is wrapped around a leaf, and when the lamp is turned on because of the heat, the string shrinks and thereby crushes the leaf. So this is shape memory polymer. This is it's not something that is only uniquely used in liner. It's actually applied in a lot of places in the engineering world. And when it's applied in a liner, let's look at this little video that LuxCreo provided. So when the aligner is distorted, if it's a thermoformed aligners, you either, crush it, or if you put it into hot water, it's not going to come back anyway. So if it's an aligner with a shape memory effect, say like LuxCreo, after you bend it, you put it into hot water, it goes back to its original shape. And how does it work? What's the science behind it? So let's look at this graph over here. So these kinds of shape memory polymers, LuxCreo's aligners, they're actually composed of two components. So first you have what we call a net point or hard domain. So these components, they have a higher TG or higher melting point. So they have a higher gas transition temperature, and they determine the permanent shape or the original shape that you want the aligner to have. So this is what determines the shape of the aligner when you fabricate it from a printer. This is the shape that you want to go back to after you put the aligner into the patient's mouth. Now you also have another component inside this shape memory polymer, which is what we call a switching segment. So the switching segments have a lower gas transition temperature or a lower melting point, and it solidifies the temporary shape. What is even more important is that it is sensitive to external stimulus. So this is the switching segment is the part where enables the whole enables the whole shape memory process. Now I know this is very complicated, so I did this little cartoon over here, and we're gonna go over it again. So say we have these white dots and red lines over here. So these red lines and white dots are the hard domain. So they determine the permanent shape. Now, remember, these hard domain, they have a much higher gas transition temperature or a much higher melting point. Then we also have this blue zigzag lines over here. These are the switching segments. So they have a much lower gas transition temperature, and they're sensitive to the temperature that we use when we try to make this shape memory effect take place. So let's say this switching segment, these blue zigzag lines, they have this gas transition temperature of around 60 degrees Celsius. And we start with in an environment of about 80 degrees Celsius. So right now we're in a very hot environment. So this is like a 3D printer. So in a printer where the aligner is made, the temperature is very high. So we're in a very hot environment right now. And the switching segment, because their gas transition temperature is much lower than the environment we're in, right now it's very soft. So it doesn't have any strength at all. So what is holding the aligner right now are the red lines. Now, When we place the aligner into the patient's mouth, the temperature drops because the intraoral temperature is around 37, so around 40 degrees Celsius, right? So right now, when the temperature drops, it drops below the transition temperature of the switching segments. So the blue zigzag lines become hard. So now they're hot because they're transitioning into a more solid phase right now. And when you place it into the mouth, the patient's teeth are going to push the aligner a little bit. So this is going to be external force experienced by the aligner, and the aligner distorts. So say if your regular thermoformed aligners, the aligner gets distorted, it's lost. It's just distorted. You can never revert it back to its original shape. But if it's a LuxCreo aligner, if you put it into hot water again, the switching segments, they become soft again, because right now the temperature rises again above the gas transition temperature of the blue lines, and they become soft and they become back to zigzag lines. So they don't hold any strength anymore. And the red lines, which was the original hard domains, they will pull the aligner back to its original shape. So the aligner goes back to its permanent shape again. So this series of actions is how we experience or how we use shape memory effects into aligner, how we reboost or rejuvenate the aligner back to its original shape. So you guys can screenshot this. I think this is a very, very good example of how shape memory effect takes place in direct print aligners. So this is why direct print aligners are called 4D aligners, because LuxCreo is using 3D printing, but with a smart material that responds to heat and has 2 or even more configurations in different time, because you're adding the aspect of time, so this is 4D. Now, again, let's look at this graph. So every time you put it into hot water, you rejuvenate or you reboost, or the aligner is reverted back to its original shape and goes back to a much higher force. Now, some people might ask, what is LuxCreo? How is LuxCreo different from TC85, which is the material that is used by Graphy? Graphy, they also have this kind of shape memory effect, but their glass transition temperature, or the temperature they're using to play around with, is near body temperature. While LuxCreo, the temperature for shape memory effect is much higher. It's equivalent to hot water. So LuxCreo is using hot water to restore a liner back to shape. Graphy is using body temperature to restore a liner back to shape. But how is it different? Which one is better? Well, I think what we have to know, a very important concept is that when you try to play around with shape memory effect in polymer, as you heat it up, as the temperature rises closer to the glass transition temperature when the shape memory effect takes place, the polymer actually becomes softer, which means when you have an aligner that has shape memory effect, when you place it at a temperature when it experiences shape memory effect, the aligner becomes very soft. So for Graphy, it becomes soft at body temperature, because body temperature is where its shape memory effect takes place. But when the aligner becomes soft, is it hard enough or is it still rigid enough to move teeth? It may be okay for you to do some minor tooth movement, but with more complicated tooth movement, is the force still sufficient enough? I think that's a very, very big question that everyone has to ask. So What I like about LuxCreo is that their glass transition temperature is much higher. So you don't experience much of a shape memory effect through heat intraorally. So intraorally is still, LuxCreo's aligner are still very rigid. They still have enough force. They still have enough force to move teeth. They still have a lot of force to do more complicated tooth movement. But when the aligner is distorted after a period of time of wearing, you take it out, you put it into hot water, and the aligner goes back to its original shape. It becomes essentially like a new aligner again, and you ask the patients to wear it again. So LuxCreo's shape memory effect works by reverting it extraorally. So it's a little bit different from Graphy, and I think it makes more sense. So, um, so now that everyone's been through this concept of shape memory polymer, I want to go back to shape memory alloy, which is everyone is very used to. Night-tie wire. So if you do braces, you must be very, very accustomed to the mechanical properties of night-tie wire. So night-tie wire at room temperature, which is a colder environment, it is actually soft. But once you placed a night-tie inside the patient's mouth, the temperature rises and the phase for night-tie transitions from martensite to austenite, where the wire becomes stiffer. So shape memory in night-tie, it works in favor of teeth movement because when you place it inside the patient's mouth, the wire actually becomes harder, the force becomes larger, the wire becomes stiffer, and you have more force to move the teeth. But in polymer, it's the opposite. In polymers, intraoral temperature is much, much lower. It's a colder environment compared to a 3D printer. And when you're trying to use shape memory effect in polymers, you're actually increasing the temperature while also decreasing the stiffness of a polymer. In other words, during shape memory effect in a polymer, the plastic is actually becoming softer. You actually become less rigid. You actually lose force. The force decreases. So, which leads us to two questions. Now, the first question I've just asked. So, for a polymer or for a shape memory aligner that has a transition temperature that is close to body temperature, the aligner actually softens inside the mouth. But how do you ensure it still has enough force for complicated tooth movement? So I think this is a question that everyone should be thinking about. Now, question two. So if you're using an aligner such as LuxCreo, which has a higher glass transition temperature, where you use shape memory effect, not inside the mouth, but in hot water, the question you need to ask is to how do you ensure that the aligner is fully seated inside the mouth? Because in an intraoral temperature, the aligner is still very rigid. So this is why if you use LuxCreo's design, sometimes you could also dip it into hot water before asking the patient to wear the aligner. Now, you could also adjust the thickness of the aligner during your design to ensure that it is better seated. But the main takeaway is that because the shape memory effect, the temperature is set at a much higher temperature, you could always almost get enough strength while you place the aligner inside the mouth. So I think this is very important because when we move the teeth, say when you use a night-tie wire and you place it inside the patient's mouth, the important thing is not the loading force of the wire, but it's the unloading force of the wire. It's the unloading force of the wire or how much force the wire gives the tooth or how much force the tooth experiences from the wire that actually move the teeth. Now, the same thinking applies to a liner. What is important is how much force you still have when the patient is wearing the aligner. So you want to make sure that when you have a shape memory effect on an aligner, it is still also rigid enough while the patient is wearing. That is how you can move the teeth efficiently. And I think this is a very, very important thing that LuxCreo offers. But nevertheless, I think direct print aligner is just not an optimization of current orthodontic strategies. It is a next generation ortho. So again, I want to thank everyone who's here with us today, and I encourage all of you to try LuxCreo and apply it into your clinical practice. I think it's an awesome tool, and I believe the future is already here now. So thank you all. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me through social medias or email. And I love to hear feedbacks and questions from you. And so we can all learn more about this very, very cool new technology together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. I was actually very impressed by your presentation and the last cases, the few cases you presented. The first one, I think, was your grad friend, but the other two were without attachments, if I noticed correctly. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it happens.
We have received some questions to that point. One of the questions, so I'm going to go through some of the questions we had in the Q&A. The first one I just take for me because do we have TGA approval for Australia? So we're in the process of acquiring this. We expect this soon, but we still don't have it at the moment as we speak. But so that's one point. But we also had other questions relating to the removal of uncured monomers. Again, that's what Dr. Lin mentioned through the automatic washing through the IP at 99%. We remove all these monomers, and then afterwards we go through curing evaporation in the Lux Oven Pro. We have one question for you. I think this one could be interesting for you, Dr. Lin, is what type of indications are the 4D aligners suitable for? Can you comment and speak to this?
Well, I think you could apply it on all kinds of cases. I mean, as long as you're comfortable with treating your cases with aligners, if you were able to treat certain kind of cases with thermoformed aligners before, I don't think you should have any problem in treating them with LuxCreo's aligners. Just remember that one of the key concept is that you should ask your patients to put it into hot water every day, making sure the aligner is always in full strength, and that you're always making sure that you're utilizing the advantage of shape memory effect in these polymers.
Thank you. Well, I have a similar question here. Can you comment on then therefore distalization cases and what's your take of it?
Yeah, I mean, so as I just mentioned, I mean, I can go back to the slides. Um, Still seeing my screen, right? Let's see. Okay, it's here. Okay, yeah, so I was just saying, so for distalizing, you want to make sure that the material between, say, the first and the second molar is thick enough. So, because when you have a thicker material or you have more material over there, you can make sure that you have a much higher force at the mesial aspect of the second molars. And I think that is very crucial for you to make sure that you have enough force to distalize. But with thermoformed aligners, because of how they're made, um, the gap between the first and second molars, you can never get enough material into it. So I think this is a very, very big advantage for direct printing.
Thank you. I'm going through this. Thank you for all the questions that we're receiving. So I'm selecting a few and I group them by topic. Here is, have you also tried other direct print materials? Can you speak to the workflow and how do you find the workflow of LuxCreo?
Yeah. So, no, I have not tried other systems before, but I do have colleagues that have tried other systems, and I wouldn't say that I'm like 100% familiar with the process, but I think I know quite a bit about it. So again, I think as I just said, what I liked most about LuxCreo is that LuxCreo is it's a closed system. So I think closed system is very important because all the equipments or the machines were tailored to how this particular kind of resin is supposed to be used. And again, if you have ever done in-house aligners before, you will know that if there are multiple steps for you where you can adjust the parameters, there's only going to be a chance for you to get something wrong. So for a whole system like LuxCreo, everything is packaged together. It's less you have a much less chance to get something wrong because everything is set specifically for that. So that's why I encourage for a complicated process like doing aligners in-house. You should really get something that is packaged together. And LuxCreo, I think, is definitely a very good choice for that.
In terms of, you mean learning curve and ease of use, right?
Yeah, learning curve definitely easier. The parameters are definitely set for this resin. It's just much easier, I would say.
Thank you. I've got a number of questions relative to how many hours do people wear the aligners, but I'm not sure yet. Maybe have been, but also how many days do you use a single aligner? Have you seen the reduced number of days? Can you speak to that, Dr. Lin?
Well, so I'm on the more conservative side, so I still ask patients to wear 10 days for each aligner. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, I think with this active memory effect, you should be able to ask the patients to change, more frequently, say like 7 days or even 5 days. Uh, yeah, I would encourage everyone to try that if it's a suitable case and if the patient is compliant.
Right. Thank you. I've got another question here, but maybe I'll take it is which treatment plans are compatible with LuxCreo? Which treatment plan software are you using, Dr. Lin?
So I use Titan. Also, our technician at our practice, I think they use Maestro, I think. But it's fine. I mean, because for LuxCreo software, you could always import STL files after you design and so whether you use, I think, ULab if you're in North America or other kinds of treatment planning software, everything is fine. As long as you're able to export an STL file from the treatment planning software, you could always import it into LuxCreo's software, and they're just gonna produce an inverted shell from the STL file that you have, and then it's gonna the supporting structures are gonna you don't have to adjust anything. They're just gonna give you supporting structures that is best designed for the shell that you have right now. I
Absolutely.
think everything is just very easy, just one click, and then it's gonna generate everything you need.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I like to emphasize, so in fact, all of our customers typically stay to with the treatment software, treatment plan software they used to. So whether it's Onyx F, ULab, or 3Shape, you name it, Blue Sky Bio, Nemotech, Titan Dental, in your case, Dr. Lin. So they've basically just been able to continue to use their treatment planning software and they import the STL. There are some people who import the XML files directly so they can put more stages in one go for the transfer. And we actually work with most of these companies to further streamline the passing into our Lux design to create the shell, as Dr. Lin mentioned. And it's to add additional features like how to facilitate the design of buttons, of hooks, or even specific attachments. So yeah, the compatibility is one element. Um, Let me see. I've got another technical question. So because you did mention the resin, can I use the direct print aligner resin on my 3D printer? So let me respond to that maybe. So if your printer is a LuxCreo, absolutely, you're more than welcome to use the LuxCreo DCA on the LuxCreo printers, and you will benefit from this, from all of the R&D and engineering efforts we've put in creating this resin of performance with the ActiveMemory that was presented today, but also all the fine tuning in terms of the parameters and the design and the hardware settings that we have for all of our printing and post-processing. We actually do not support the use of our DCA resin with non-LuxCreo printers. So there's a number of reasons to that. The first reason is that we actually need to comply to the strict workflow that's described in the FDA, CE mark, and other regulatory approval that we've received. So that require a strict control of the workflow for safety and efficacy. So our CE mark and FDA is actually specific to our workflow. So that's one reason. But the real reason is that most printers will probably not be able to handle our resin due to our specific molecular mass and viscosity. So that would be a problem. Others, I think Dr. Lin mentioned that, will probably not be able to cope with the requirements that we have specifically in terms of wavelength for the polymerization. These printers will definitely not support our digital polishing, which that is really, really unique. It's one of the main reasons also why we can actually wash the residual monomers in the automated IPA washing device. So if you want to benefit from this, is you really need to use this what Dr. Lin describes as a closed system for facility, but also it would require a lot of R&D hours to try settings of our resin on other printers for a result that we know will not work. So that's to answer that question.
Yeah, I wanna emphasize on that. So I think from a doctor's perspective, I care most about two things. So first is patient safety. So that's allergy. So I mean, we wouldn't want any allergy. Our goal is to have zero allergy. And for such a complicated process, such as like printing aligners in your own office, using a hardware or a machine that is designed specifically for that kind of resin, having the parameters that are set for that kind of resin, I think is very important for you to ensure that you have zero allergy. And also you want to make sure that you have efficiency in treatment, which means that the aligner should have enough rigidity, should have enough strength. And even for the same kind of resin, if the wavelength or the intensity of the light in the printer, if it's a little bit different, it's going to end in different results. And if you want to make sure that your aligner is at its fullest strength, there's no reason for you to use a printer that, you know, where the parameters are not set for that resin. So I think it just makes sense to use a system designed for that resin if you want to ensure that you don't have any allergy or the aligner works well in your patient's mouth.
Right. I also have a question here with regard to the treatment planning. So how many, what's the tooth movement that you determine for your treatment plans between stages? Can you speak to that? Has that changed your habits? How do you see that evolving?
So no, right now, as of the moment, I still do like 0.25 to 0.3 millimeter per step. But again, I think with the shape memory polymer, we do have the potential to move more for each step. I'm still working on that. I'll certainly let you guys know if I have some results.
Thank you. Well, I mean, maybe I can share some of the other feedback that we've heard from customers. Indeed, I have to say that a lot of the orthodontics world and colleagues are quite conservative and for the right reasons for the benefit of the patient. But what the observation is that by going through heat reactivation and restoring the shape and the force to the aligner, basically you make sure that the aligners are in the mouth of the patient track to the original treatment plan. So the probability of deviating from the plan, which ultimately means that you'll probably have to restart a whole new treatment plan, is getting lower. And that's one of the benefits we've also heard from a lot of practitioners. Right. And what about the comfort of wearing the aligners because of the thickness of the aligners that you designed, Dr. Lin? Can you speak to that?
I think it's fine. Right now I don't have any patients that had any difficulty in wearing the aligners.
Okay. Would you say that thanks to the higher accuracy, there's a difference in the comfort of wearing it?
I think someone's turned on there. Okay. Yeah, well, actually, with a better fit, might be less comfortable for patient to wear if you have too good of a fit. So this is why when you design the shell, it is very important to follow the say LuxCreo or follow the manufacturer's guideline for the size of the gap. So again, we all want to have good fit, right? For aligner on the tooth. Better fit, you have better tooth movement. But if your fit is too good, sometimes it'll be very, very difficult for patient to put it in because of the undercuts of the teeth. So it's a trade-off. So right now, yeah. So I would say right now, my patients at least right now, I think they don't have any difficulty in placing it in. They do say that it's a bit tighter, but we're setting the parameters where we don't make it too difficult for them to wear the aligners.
Thank you very much for that comment. I see that the time has passed. I would like to encourage people to type in their last questions here. We will not have time to address further questions. At this stage, we've actually passed the time of closing. But if you type your questions, we will collect them and we will get back to you with answers within our means. I want to close today's session by thanking all of you for your interest in this topic. I think we are all feeling that we are on the verge of seeing more and more adoption to what the technology that we have developed here is providing us. I want to thank Dr. Ling for sharing the cases, the patient cases, even jumping into your first case where we could see that you had put some more attachments than you've done at the end where you did not put attachments, and sharing that personal element to help us explain the benefits of your solutions, of our solutions to your patients and the way you've implemented the system. With this, I will invite all of you to stay in touch with us. We will continue to invite you to further webinars that we will organize. I want to also share one last slide that I still have for you. Just to say that in addition to thanking you, of course, for those of you who will be going to the different congresses that are coming up here in Europe, I hope to see you there. Look for me or send me a message and be very pleased to discuss with you and chat with you. Once again, thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Lin. Really appreciate your time and commitment, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.